the crux of the matter is. You see, ethical frameworks, progressive innovation can happen, but if they don't happen at the same pace altogether, then you're likely to end up with solutions, products that won't actually be aligned with human values. I've seen that so many times. Getting excited about technology, delivering technology, but not spending time with governance, not spending time implementing those guardrails that will actually, ensure that some right lines are not crossed. And bottom line, I won't say in the real world, but in the business world, uh, banks will know that very well. It's all about numbers. It's a capital system. You want profitability, efficiency, reducing risk altogether. And because of that, what I'm seeing, unfortunately, is a lot of businesses are rushing to do innovative projects, AI projects, without spending the right amount of time to put in place the right governance structures. This is the reality of what I've been seeing in the country and also a little bit in Africa as well. That's my take on that. Now, um, you see, the way that the continent works is um, Africa. I mean, back in the days, we used to say whatever the rest of the world does in terms of technology, Africa, we kind of do it in 2 to 3 years' time. Have always been the same. So whatever the big techs are doing out there, we'll tend to adopt it and use it in the next coming 2 to 3 years' time. With AI and all those innovative technology that is coming around, it's the other way around. I was lucky enough to work with African Union on drafting the AI strategy for the continent. And there's a sentence there that says AI for Africa by Africa. And that's a very big statement in itself. Now, we have the opportunity now to build systems, innovative solutions and services that can build our continental values, that can build the way that we want the system to work, and not rely on what's happening elsewhere in the world. And I think conference like this is where usually I tend to hear a lot of those very specific nature features of what it means for us, those ethical values, what it means for us in terms of business, in terms of way of life, in terms of good governance within organizations. This is I would say, an opportunity for us where we can leapfrog and move ahead. Now, a lot of people have been talking about the AI race, the big investment going around, all those big amounts of money being poured down in data centers, in all sorts of rush towards who gets to the super intelligence first. Um, I was in Paris for an AI summit in February, and one thing was very striking. As someone representing an African country, all the conversations were happening between Europe, US, and China. At any point in time, no African country was going to be in those big conversations. And this is just not right. I'm not speaking as a Mauritian, but as an African. This is simply not right. We have to show ourselves out there. We have to make ourselves known. And through research, through innovative approach to AI, we will definitely be doing that in the future. That's the way I see it. Now, depending, I want just a little touch on big tech companies. It's very important to understand in our context, even so for business, that we're highly dependent on those big techs. The way that they operate, the way that they bring innovation, it's not sometimes that you always have a choice. You kind of depend on them. Um, at some point, everyone was pushing every business to the cloud. This was the hype. Now it's AI first, so all your vendors, everyone is saying, let's move towards AI. And you feel like you're pushed to in that direction. You have no choice. There's a nice meme that goes around on LinkedIn. You'll see it. Every vendor will come up and say, "This is powered by AI." This is the hype. Now, what it does, they won't tell you. How it works in the background, they won't tell you. How the data is managed, they won't tell you. What happens when there are ethical issues? What happens when there are bias issues? They won't tell you. Now, those are the hard questions we need to ask from a business perspective. Yeah, I won't be long. But my final I would say thinking around what's happening the next 2 days is really we are right now having the hard conversations around those innovative technologies. It's a time to really speak loud and clear about how we want AI to define our business, how we want AI to define the way that we move forward. And I'm actually pursuing a small bit of research very soon on how to frame ethical I would say ethical values into hard embedded AI. This is the way that I'm actually going to move in the future. And I hope that one day we're not talking about AI as frameworks, but we're not talking about ethics as frameworks, but we're talking about ethics as hard embedded softwares in the existing systems. We should not be having a checklist of seeing whether we have matched the requirements of those governance structure. We should be having them in our own existing system and services. This is the way I see the future happening. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for having me share a few words. And I did not even look at what I had prepared. Yeah, I just really thank you. And I wish you all amazing conference ahead. The lineup is really incredible. Well done again, Ben Africa. Thank you, Absa, and thank you everyone for having me.
Thank you very much. I have a gift for you. Thank you very much. But I think there is a question that he asked us to think through, especially ethics and our values as Africans on matters AI. I hope, pray that these wonderful brains here will come up with a proceeding with our job paper. I know we have been able to publish proceedings, and I do hope that this will be a resource for many people to access and learn from this interactive session. Thank you. From Ben Africa to you, this is with love. Thank you. Thank you very much. Good. In Kenya, we say the syllabus is moving quite fast. Bella Kedman, and she handed over this very important document, and I would like to share with you. I know you've all been waiting for it. Let's appreciate Bella, the Wi-Fi. Are you able to see it? Can you read? So we have the password. You identified the Middlesex students, me, DX student. The password is M exclamation mark double D L E, and this is should be the dollar sign and then EX. Good to go? Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bella. Let's appreciate Bella. It's working. Good. Dr. Karike. Dr. Karike is coming over for our first panel discussion, and she will introduce her panel members. She will moderate matters corporate carbon. Sorry, it's the ghost. It's the ghost. Thank you. You're with me. The ghost in the shell, and we're going to ask ourselves whether human and artificial intelligence in the face of technology is a friend or the foe. Correct? You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning. How are you doing? Everybody still awake? Everyone cool enough? Yes. Try to sort the aircon so it's just the right amount of cold, because if it's hot, then we'll fall asleep. So hopefully everybody is awake and alive for this session. So thank you very much. Welcome to you to this panel, the first of our panel discussions, and indeed a wonderful topic on the ghost in the shell, ethics, humans, and artificial intelligence in the face of technological innovation. And I think that is such an important topic to talk about. And I've got three guests that will join me on this panel today. Two of them will be virtual, and we are just trying to get them online. Sylvia, we still, because we're running a little bit ahead in our program. Who's ever heard of that at a conference, running ahead of the program? So we're just trying to get them. But in the meantime, I would like to welcome to the stage as one of the people who will be present from Middlesex University, Dr. Suraj Jadoo. Did I pronounce that correctly? From Middlesex University, the Department of Computer Science, and we want to welcome you this morning. Please join me on stage. Can I just say I had the privilege of coming to Middlesex University last year for the first time, and this is my third visit already to Middlesex, and it is quite something to experience the innovation and the technology and the progress that they are making on this ground. So I want to say congratulations also to the work you're doing at Middlesex. So welcome. Please have a seat. Online, we've got Molly, Dr. Molly Uguniemi, who's a senior lecturer at the Institute of Humanities, part of the Institute of Humanities of the Pan-Atlantic University in Nigeria. Good morning, Molly.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Karike. Thank you for the introduction. I'm glad to be here.
It's wonderful to have you, and you can hear us clearly and all of that?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. I hope you can hear me too.
Yes, we can hear you. We've got one more panelist. Not yet available. Okay. So I'm going to start this session then. I will just do a brief introduction when Caleb joins us. Otherwise, I will start shortly and then I'll hand over to my first two panelists to give a short introduction on this topic. So there's an old African proverb that says, a person who uses their hands is a laborer. A person who uses their hands and mind is a craftsman. But a person who uses their hands, mind, and heart is an artist. Today, I want us to think about what happens when the mind, the power to think and to reason and to even create, no longer belongs to humans alone. When machines begin to act, decide, and perhaps even imagine, where does that leave our human hearts, our ethics, our empathy, and our spirit? That's the heart of today's conversation, the ghost in the shell. So artificial intelligence is not a science fiction reality anymore. It is very much something that we are experiencing. It is rapidly growing. It writes news articles, diagnoses diseases, it paints pictures, drives cars, and sometimes even makes decisions that affect people's lives. Across Africa, AI holds incredible promise. It helps farmers predict weather and protect crops. It can translate languages and preserve local cultures. It can support doctors in diagnosing patients faster and more accurately. But it also raises profound ethical questions. Who owns the data that fuels these systems? What happens when algorithms discriminate and exclude, especially based on race and gender, and something that would definitely affect us in Africa specifically? And how do we ensure African societies are not simply consumers of AI, but creators, shaping it according to our values and our realities, as we also heard our keynote speaker say this morning? The title Ghost in the Shell invites us to think beyond technology to the soul of innovation. The ghost represents human consciousness, that mysterious spark of moral awareness, of compassion, and of creativity. The shell represents our tools, our technologies, our creations, and our systems. As AI becomes more advanced, we risk filling the world with powerful shells, intelligent systems, but losing touch with the ghost, our humanity, our ethical compass. So the question for us is, can we design technology that amplifies the human spirit rather than replaces it? Can innovation be guided by Ubuntu, the idea that I am because we are, so that technology strengthens community, not just individual power or profits? So today, this panel brings together thinkers and practitioners who grapple with these questions every day. It brings us together as people from business and technology to governance and philosophy. And together we'll explore how ethics can keep pace with innovation, how governance can ensure AI serves people, not just markets, and how Africa can shape the moral imagination of this new technology. As we begin, I invite us not only to think about what AI can do, but what it should do. Not only about how machines are learning to act like humans, but how humans must remember to act like humans. Perhaps the greatest challenge of innovation is not teaching machines to think, but teaching ourselves to remain wise. Thank you, and I welcome you to the conversation. So this morning I want to start off, and I'll go in the as I introduced you, sorry, in the order in which I introduced you. So I'll give over to Dr. Suraj, and you can have a few minutes just to have an introduction on the topic and what you think, and share your thoughts with us on the topic. I would appreciate that. And Molly, then we'll move over to you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, so pleased to be here, and thank you, to have organized this very important talk. Okay, with this spectrum of stakeholders here, because I'm from academia, and I think it's very important that we have this kind of discussion between academia, private, and also public sector, because you know, there's a big hype around, let's say, innovative technologies. Okay, today we are, let's say, focusing on AI because, let's say, since the past, let's say, 5 years, AI has been developing at such a tremendous rate that, in fact, there is some kind of smog about it. People talk about it, but we don't really grapple exactly what's happened. Okay, and that's why I think the discussion is very important. Okay, so the protein, the friend of food, is itself very meaningful. Okay, we want technologies to be our friend, and we want to do everything to prevent it to become some kind of problem, some kind of food. But let's look around it. I've been teaching around ethical dilemmas about technology since some years now. So basically, there has always been this question about how do you really govern technology well. Okay, the big issue with AI is that it's progressing so fast that whenever organizations are coming up with frameworks, ethical frameworks, and so on, it always seems that there are gaps which are not being covered. So how do we go about this? We should try to be ahead in terms of governance procedures. So to be able to do that, we should be able to anticipate new leaps in technology. And this is hard, basically. Okay? This is very hard. So the topic is extremely important, and we have discussed about things that should be looked at, about definitely, we talk a lot about data, bias, and so on. But in terms of ethical framework, especially for AI, there's a big conversation about responsible AI, which it encompasses not only ethics, also compliance, but also what I like, as you have just said very much, about the human side. Okay, when we talk about the responsible AI, we need to look at how labor dynamics are going to change. Okay, how societal dynamics are going to change. I'm talking about arts and culture, how we live, how we think. Everything is going to change. Okay, uh, how environment dynamics are going to change. Okay, so basically, it's a very broad topic, and I think we need to actually narrow it down to specifics and then discuss further. Okay, so I think I'm going to talk more afterwards.
Thank you very much. I think you're giving us food for thought and also reminding us about the rapid pace. I mean, I did a talk at one stage in the university and said AI and ethics, it's like trying to herd cats. Because just when you think you've got all of them in, one pops out again, and it's exactly that. Just when you think you've got a lid on it, something new comes up. So thank you very much for that insight. Molly, we are going to head over to you and give you an opportunity to have a brief introduction to the topic. So please feel free, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to be in this conversation, dialogue about the AI in business ethics, especially looking at what keeps us human in the age of rapidly evolving technologies. I mean, I think one of the first things that I'd like to say is that as an educator, I'm also from academia, and I teach, I'm in touch on a daily basis with young undergraduate students who are studying to be AI scientists, they're computer scientists, they're people who are studying data science, and also some master students. So it's really interesting and a pleasure to be with young people who are shaping the future of AI in Africa, who will be shaping it. So with the conversations we have many times, reflecting on what AI can do for us, for businesses, for development, and how we can leverage this technology for the benefit of a human person. So having conversations around what it means to flourish as an African, what it means to grow, not just for yourself. Earlier on, Kariki talked about Ubuntu, to think, how is this my knowledge? How are my tools? How is the technology going to help my community to flourish? These are conversations that are very important, especially when you begin to talk about or speak with people, young adults who are going to be at the forefront of the change when it comes to emerging technologies in Africa. I think it's very important to have those conversations about the benefits, the risks, like we're going to discuss, but also to think of the potentials that AI has for us. And I think we in Africa have to shape what it is going to do for us. That's also part of being not just a ghost in a shell, but the people who control as much as it's possible within our power, or at least direct the part to which AI is taking us, so that we're not just carried along with the flow of what's going on or trends that are global trends, but we do things intentionally to direct our economies, to direct our communities based on our values, based on what we'd like it to shape and how we'd like it to influence us to make the Africa we want to be. So I think it's very important to have these conversations and thinking about the benefits, looking at the possibilities for economic growth, for having more efficiency in our systems, for monitoring. There's so many possible benefits. But then at the center of it all, like we're going to have more conversations around, how does it serve us? How does it help us to prioritize our relationships, our concern for our neighbor, which is something very much in our communal spirit and mostly in African with African values at the center. So I'd say it's important to have these conversations and say, how would we remain human? How do we keep our values? And I think we'll have a very rich conversation about this. And I'd like to say, let's think about it together and have those conversations now in the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Molly, also for placing that focus. And I think we're going to hear this over and over again on the African perspective on AI and making AI truly African, which is, of course, a challenge because only 36% of Africans have access to basic internet. So we are already in terms of infrastructure challenged. So are we only talking to the privileged in Africa when we deal with AI? That's something to think of. Who are the people that we are working with and whose voice are we representing? Are we also representing the voices of those who are in communities that don't have access to the internet, that don't have access to the infrastructure that we are, seeing on display here beautifully at Middlesex University? I know communities in South Africa that is so far rural that they don't have cell phones, they don't have access to phones, they don't have access to networks. We know that about our regionals. In my region where I work in Southern Africa, Mozambique has the same challenges. Infrastructure is a problem. So whose voice are we inputting? Is it once again only the privileged in Africa that we're representing? Or how are we going to use also the voice of those who are marginalized? So that's perhaps something we can keep in the back of our head. Thank you, Molly, also for putting the focus on Africa, but also then keeping in mind that whose voice are we representing when we say an African voice in AI? I think that is something that we need to think about too. And what kind of African voice? Is it an African voice that is truly African, or is it an African voice that's been westernized and already influenced by outside perspectives from anybody else outside of the global south, and those who are leading? So what does it mean to have that truly African voice? So I think we don't have yet our third panelist available, and so we'll continue. And I've got some questions that I'd like to ask, and then at some stage I'll go over and give you the opportunity to engage with these wonderful scholars who will be able to answer the difficult questions that you are thinking up for them at the moment. So please keep your pens and paper ready, and we'll do that. So, but for an opening question, I would like to ask you, what does it mean to remain human in an age of intelligent machines?
Wow, tough question. So basically, it entails defining exactly what is human now. Okay, but okay, seriously, one of the things that is being discussed about AI, and should have heard about it, is about like AI is going to augment human capabilities. Okay, in definitely in terms of productivity in work and so on. But we should backtrack a bit. We should not just look at just AI as the only technology. We should look also at the other very interesting developments happening in, I would say, parallel technologies like robotics, quantum computing, and so on, which is actually promoting AI. Okay, like allowing AI to progress upon what has already been devised in theory years ago. Okay, so coming back to your question now, remaining human, I think human beings, they would always have this characteristic of having values, having norms, and so on, which is going to, and basically, this is where, sometimes it's like a bit sci-fi, like we tend to think that, AI might be like, overpowering, human beings and so on. I don't know. We are not yet there in terms of technology, but right now it's a very meaningful question about how to make sure it doesn't happen maybe in 5 years, in 10 years, and so on. So to come to some kind of start of an answer, it's about devising those new technologies in terms of its analysis and design to embed core human values, what we want technology to be able to do, and also how we can try to restrict it. Okay, there has been, if you look at discussions, on social media and other more serious sources, there has been some statements saying that certain AI, again, I don't like to use AI like in a general sense because AI is a very broad technology in itself. Okay, I prefer to use certain intelligent algorithms. Okay, so certain intelligent algorithms are like have bypassed certain human commands. Okay, so do we need to fear it, or is it some kind of just, let's say, glitch in technology, or not, and that's why we are talking about it here, not strong enough governance mechanisms which has been overlooked. Okay, but yeah, I think the humans should still be driving the technology.
Thank you very much. I think I saw during last week, I think there was a robot that was created, and it's controlled by AI, and it will learn how to clean your house for yourself. And when I sent this to my family group, my mom got really excited and said she would appreciate one of that. So I think that's one way of controlling the machines, is getting them to do our chores first. Let's prioritize what's important. Molly, would you like to respond to the opening question?
Thank you, Karike. I think that I like that your example of talking about AI doing the chores and leaving towards those tasks that we have identified more as things we'd like to do ourselves as humans. And maybe one of them is care of the others. Because for us, if we bring it back to Ubuntu, it's also being human and being with humans. But I also would like us to see what keeps us human in addition to those core human values that the other panelists talk about. One of them probably is care, relationships, maintaining contact with people. Well, that's something that it's becoming a trend that people refer to AI or connect to AI or to large language models, chatbots for companionships. And then you have several consequences that may not be so helpful. And one needs to say, how do we moderate it? And how do we know when to use such technology such that we humans direct or we're in charge of the determining or at least knowing or being able to identify when those things are helping us to flourish and how to put guardrails so that we do know how our relationships with technology is going. So in that sense, remaining human or keeping what is human in the technology would be to be the one who is the people who are having AI work for us, not us working for AI. So some of the ethical issues that come up with things like training data in a way that exploits people who are from lower income companies. So you have those people working more for the tool than for having the tool work for humans. That's even just in the development phase. So in the different phases, whether it be the training of the models or in the development of technology or even in its use, being human means saying, how does this benefit the humans? Do the humans become tool, or does this thing actually work as a tool to help humans? So even if it's a genetic AI, it seems to have some form of autonomy. In the last analysis, what we do when we create tools is something that will help us to achieve goals as humans, that will help us, to flourish. And so we have to keep that always in mind. How is this going to help other humans to flourish? How is it helping me to flourish as a human? And am I somebody who is in charge, or is this technology helping us to grow? And I think that I would like to say is that human-centered vision that you can have when you're developing technologies. this new industrial revolution, the fourth one, and here we are all using technology, and things are changing, and they are going to change. And like you said, there are lots of benefits. So being human being is to be the ones who guide the direction in which that technology is going, so that it is centered around human good and human development, which may vary in terms of its manifestations in different contexts. In Africa, would incorporate our own values, but the human is at the center. So what is human must always remain as the most important. And I think that's something that could also be central to the ethical approach to integrating business AI in businesses. So people have many fears in terms of work displacements. You also mentioned things of inclusion and being able to have access to this technology. What kind of competition are we creating across fields, across institutions and industries, and how are people enabled to be no to be not disadvantaged simply because of lack of access to these tools? So these are many questions that one can consider when you're thinking, oh, how can we remain how can the human be at the center of this technology? Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I must say, when I listen to both our speakers, there's a sense of hope that comes from knowing that we are trying to get an African voice to the technology that we create. And when I listen to what we want to do, it's about we want to take humans into consideration, and we must. I like this voice that's coming through from Africa, and I think that we could really be leaders on this field of technology. And I think that's one of the best things about Africa is that we've got a lot of young people, but they are so technologically advanced and they are so capable. If you look at, we had a Globe Ethics Youth Awards last year. It was two of the three winners came from Africa, from Cameroon and from Nigeria, because we've got thinkers, young thinkers who want to advance. But I like the idea, Molly, that you also reminded us of the importance of community in all of this and how we work with technology. That it doesn't take away from our community-centered view of the world. So I like that approach, and I hope that that is the kind of identity that we will always keep in mind when we work on technologies. So thank you very much for both of your voices to this question. So I'll continue to the next question so that we can have the conversation going. And please feel free to address each other too if you have questions or comments to make. So the second question I want to ask, as AI becomes more embedded in governance and business, who bears more moral responsibility for its actions? The creator, the user, or the machine itself? I like asking nice questions.
Okay. Yeah, a very nice question again. Uh, this is like it's a big topic. It's a big research topic. In fact, okay. Uh, let's take it from some kind of common sense perspective first. Okay. So, uh, you know, now maybe I'm going to focus a bit about what I would mean by AI. And right now, when we talk about AI, we really talk about what is right now called transformer models. These are very, very powerful AI systems which have been pre-trained and then trained and then also post-trained. So we must understand that there is a substantial amount of you know, like kind of guidance which has already been implemented through those kinds of training processes. So who does those guidances? Okay, so it's really human beings who have some kind of upper hand at this stage. Okay, and now if you think that after all those kinds of trainings, okay, I don't know, I'm going to be a bit technical, but there's something called reinforcement learning, okay? And when we talk about reinforcement learning, it is part of almost all new transformer models. Okay, and that's why sometimes people talk a lot about data as being the most important component, but I really don't agree with that. Data is a very important component, but who does those rewards? They are all graders. Graders started by the humans. Okay, so you can see humans have a very direct impact upon the development of powerful AI systems. So by deduction, if any technology which has become very powerful, but is still producing some unethical output, then most probably it should be some human which should be held responsible. Okay? The question is, how do the humans who are developing those systems know how far they need to be responsible? And this is where governance comes into play.
Thank you. Perhaps I can just ask you to, on that, I mean, the creator of this AI technology, but also the user. I mean, by using this technology, the user is also somewhat becoming a creator. So how does that play into the responsibility? Because if humans are using this in their private capacity, then there are no limits to what they can teach.
Yeah, totally right. Maybe I'm going to go more in depth now. Okay, let's take a scenario. Okay, company X want to use some kind of transformer method, some kind of AI system. Okay, so normally maybe company X would acquire the technology, won't develop it in house. Okay, would acquire the technology from some kind of big tech external partner. This is what is normally the case right now. Okay, so who is responsible now? What if there is some kind of issue with the AI implementation by company X? Would it be the big tech? Would it be company X? Could it be also the user who has improperly used certain, let's say, prompts or inputs? There could be all those possibilities. Okay, but this is where again, in terms of the technique, uh, the big tech won't be so responsible because let's say company X want to produce some kind of legal AI system. Okay, try to be able to help legal people to find solutions more quickly and so on. But in terms of transformer models, there is a phase where there is the idea that apart from the grading I just told you, there is some kind of consolidation phase which needs to be done. Which means just that you need to feed, during your post training, as I was talking, you need to feed contextual information. Okay. So at this point, company X must make sure that the proper and high quality contextual information has been fed into the pre-trained model being given by a big tech in order not to cause any kind of not only illegal, but now we're talking just about unethical mishaps. Okay? But it's a question, it's a very
There we
tough
go.
question.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
There we go. Yes.
Celia, we are hearing you. Thank you very much for responding in such an incredible answer, with such an incredible answer. The reason I'm asking that question is because I don't know if any of you have read that article, but there was recently a young person who committed suicide by using AI and AI prompts. So who is responsible then? Is it the user? Is it the machine? Is it the creator? And there you can see where ethical lines get blurred. This is someone using it in their personal capacity. Can we blame the creators and the developers? Can we blame ChatGPT or OpenAI or DeepSeek or whoever it is, whichever platform it is, or not? So I don't know. Molly, you're welcome to also answer, but would you like to respond to that, or would let Molly answer those questions?
Okay. Thank you, Karike. It's really an interesting question, and I think it's one of the challenges that we have. So it also comes up in conversations when I'm having conversations in the classroom with people who are developing this technology, and then you have questions of who's responsible. And I think many times what we come to realize is that you have a shared responsibility. So the creator has their responsibility, and the user has their responsibility. But sometimes, depending on what kind of technology it is, because the user is not an expert, you need the creators to put some guardrails in place. Or then you also have the government policies, those who have been given responsibility to look out for the welfare of the people in their country, their communities, or wherever it is the person has control or jurisdiction over. So I think it's a question of responsibility, individual, and then you have the communal responsibility, also shared responsibilities when it comes to knowing who's in charge of the moral evaluation of these tools. I think also talking about the creator, sometimes one can get the impression that okay, the tool, the AI tool, whatever it could be, it is kind of neutral, a friend trying to guide me towards something good. But many times they're evaluating, they're going to have the values of whoever created them, because the creator is going to create in a particular style that they think it's beneficial for human flourishing. Now, it is important for a user to know that. So when I'm adopting those systems in my businesses or for personal use, one is to keep in mind that there are values that are already embedded there. But then the user also has a responsibility to say, how does one use this in a way that protects my values, and how do I take responsibility for my actions? So I think that in terms of moral responsibility, there are many people who are involved, the stakeholders, the people using the creator, and the machine itself, even though it has those values embedded, doesn't give itself the values most times. It comes from the human who created it, or the user who has trained it. We talked about earlier how the users can feed train the models with their responses. But sometimes you have users in different contexts who are feeling the impact of another user from a completely different context, because it's a global connection. So you have those influences from other users' input impacting somebody else. So when we're talking about users, we're not even talking about individual use and saying, if I'm training a model because of my responses, or I'm training some tool because of the way I'm using it, that is going to have an impact on other people who will use it later. So I think it's important to keep that in mind. The responsibility lies with those who come in contact with it, and the impact is going to spread out or touch so many people, even those who are just who maybe even haven't used the technology. Because the example you gave of someone who committed suicide, it impacts the family. It's possible that people who are in the extended family and don't have access to technology may not have known much about it, but the impact of the suicide is also on these people. And then you have those kind of multiplied effects of that moral action or moral responsibility spreading out, having an impact to people who don't even have direct contact with this technology. So I think then it's very important that you have guardrails, having the government, having those policies, and I think it's the government of many countries and many also joint international institutions or associations are trying to have guardrails and have policies that guide the use and production and production development of these technologies, precisely because we're aware of the consequences it can have, and that the tool does not give itself its value. And many times the effects and the impacts will depend on how we use it, how we create it, and whether it's going to benefit us. Many times is connected to our usage, our development, not just the tool itself.
Yeah, so now I'm going to answer your question. Specific to the specific case that you have mentioned here, And it triggers one very important thought, especially I'm talking for the perspective of organizations, but it also is applicable for the public. Okay, it's very important that organizations ensure that whatever level of employees, because AI tools are so easily available. In fact, it's very difficult for an organization to control which AI tool an employee is using, and maybe just to try to drop an email, some email, and so on. Okay, so there needs to be some kind of basic AI level of competency for each employee nowadays. Okay, because employees need to realize that the AI tool does not is not perfect. Okay, we should not believe every kind of answer which certain transformer model, certain AI tool is producing. Okay, so by having this embedded, then it would allow employees to make a further step to cross-check whatever kind of output is being produced by an AI system. Okay? So I think the responsibility here is also upon employees being empowered enough also.
Thank you very much. And that, of course, means that we need good governance frameworks at our organizations to make sure, Absa mentioned this morning, ISO 3711, and it's very much values driven. It's about the well-being of humans also in the workplace, within the organization, within businesses, and things like that. And at the end of the day, my fear is that with the competition in this market, in this rapidly growing market, is that people will sell their souls and their morals at the end of the day. And how do we prevent that from happening at organizations then? So that money doesn't become more important, or profit doesn't become more important than selling a better, the deep sea chat GPT is open AI is a perfect example of that, do we have systems in place to ensure that we can proudly say this product is also something that will protect human beings in the process? So perhaps just something to think about. Would you like to comment on that, or should we go to another question? What do you feel like? Molly?
Yeah, I think that you've raised a very important point, so the idea of having guardrails or government policies would help a lot, so that you do know what the limits are when it comes to individual companies making decisions of how they want the AI tools to work. And I think having those conversations, the policies made not just with the government agencies, but having people from different specializations, or having companies also involved in building those tools, but in a form of a dialogue, so that you have people protecting everyone's interest, but at the same time, you don't leave people out. Also, sometimes having the stakeholders involved. But I think what will be important there, in order to help people not to sell their souls and make money their priority, would be to get those guardrails clear and available for the companies to know about, and also to educate people. I think also what he mentioned earlier about having AI literacy, so the people know that there are all these dangers and nuances to AI, that is not necessarily a neutral tool that is there and is not perfect. I think having that kind of education for the company, the employers, maybe people also at the management level, will help them to know, this things has all the benefits, but it has also all these risks. So having them also educated on what the policies are, whether on the level of the African Union or each individual country's laws, would help a lot in knowing what the limits should and should be, or what the guardrails should be. But even within those guardrails, many times there are lots of possibilities of use that will be beneficial to us. So one just needs to keep this in mind that sometimes you see the guardrails as limitations of innovation, but really, I like to see them as something that actually guides you to know the boundaries within which if you walk there, you can exercise your creativity and your use of innovation really productively and fruitfully, with avoiding the dangers of going to the excesses. So if we have those policies clear, we make them known to the companies and review them periodically as the technology is evolving, I think would go a long way to helping people use technology in a way that helps their employees to flourish and the institutions too.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Mami has just been saying in terms of policies. But now we need to look at the kind of level of policies. There are, let's say, global policies like by UNESCO, and so on. And then there are like country level policies. But research has proven that many of those policies are in fact just documents. They are not actually so enforceable per se. Okay, so that's one of the kind of issue which I think organizations at their level they should pick up certain main things from policies, but make sure that they really enforce rules and governance measures which are really tailored towards their actual operations and their forecasted operations. Okay, so this is extremely important, and basically there should be some kind of balance, okay, between policies, but also you were talking about how to ensure that money doesn't dominate this kind of growth. And I think we need to look at what's happening right now in terms of the big tech world. Okay, so in terms of big tech, you would have like private organizations who are developing very powerful systems, but which we don't know so much how it's being developed. So who would be regulating that? I know the US has started to be a bit very aggressive about it, how to regulate that. I don't know how effective it's going to be, frankly. Okay, but let's look at the other spectrum. There are open AI models. Okay, and with those open AI models, there are thousands and millions of researchers who are actually helping to improve those open AI models. So at the end of the day, there could be a choice. See what I'm trying to say? There could be a choice between using private AI systems and, let's say, more affordable open AI systems. And then it's going to be a choice of the individual.
Thank you very much. I think there's a gap in the market definitely for Africa to take the lead on this, and to use also our sense of community and the reminder of humanity when it comes to these things. So perhaps I can ask you as leaders in this field and specialists in this field to really make your voices heard and take the influence and say, let's stand up as Africa, let's take the lead. And I think we can do that, and it's time for Africa to stand up in the field of technology and say we want to be the strong leading voice in this. What I'm going to do now, before I have a closing question at the very end, is I'm going to open the floor to the dangerous people to ask you very difficult, very high intellectual, high IQ questions. Not to scare you, no, I'm kidding. They will be friendly, apparently. So can we perhaps just have 2 questions at this stage, and then please do indicate which one of you would like to approach that answer first. 1, 2.
Hello, my name is Mike from the Australian University in Germany, and I'm very happy to be here. Very interesting discussion. In Germany, we have the situation that about, in general, every 4th or 5th student shows signs of depressions. And I spoke to one of the students, and he said, Mike, I tried 3, 4 different kinds of psychologists, but my best psychologist is AI. So what will be the future? Because we need more psychologists to help our young people. But now we have a competition between AI and humans. So what is your opinion about it?
Hello, everyone. My name is Chinwe from University of Nigeria. Permit me to stand on an existing protocol. While they were speaking, taking responsibility became a big concern to me. As an educator, how do we communicate those important message? And what is that message? That what is human must remain while using AI tools. And that is care and relationship. So they are fast eroding, especially when you look at the youths. So taking responsibility, please, I wish to go home with something very credible. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for two very relevant questions. Who would like to go first?
Okay, so thank you, Mike. And I think you have started to talk about an evolution in terms of AI. Especially those transformer models were built to be conversational first, but nowadays we are now talking about those AI models becoming more intimate. Okay, so they are becoming like intimate collaborators or even partners. I think you have heard that some people prefer to have conversations with an AI system rather than their spouse, for example. No, it's true. There are all those kinds of issues happening. Okay, so and it's creating some kind of, let's say again, imbalance. You're talking about your students, but it's also in terms of society, which is happening. Okay. This is where, again, there's, I think, technical guardrails. I'm not talking about policies and so on, okay? Because the policies, we can easily, like, let's say that what should an AI do, what it shouldn't be doing, and so on, okay? But then how to make sure that it's real? Because one thing about, again, I'm a bit technical because I want us to understand what is a real challenge. There is a problem about what is known as downstream AI. Okay, that is, there is a technology which has been built, which is there, but which can evolve according to how users are training it. So who's going to be responsible again how users are training it? It's not going to be government or a company and so on. Okay, so that's where I'm coming back about technical guardrails being enforced in order not to cross red lines. Red lines have been discussed as part of many frameworks, but now they need to be enforced. They need to be embedded into technology so that it doesn't become over intimate in some ways.
Thank you very much. Molly, would you like to respond to our two questions?
Okay, so I think I agree with the idea of thinking of putting technical guardrails in place. But in addition to that, I wanted to say that with the technical guardrails, since it's also evolving, you can also have new things come up as the technology is being used. But I think something that can supplement that, it's also a generalized global awareness of what AI really is and what it can do. So that when people are interacting with it and able to train it, be it in their institutions, their companies, their employees, whatever tool you're using, you know the impact it can have. and then you can guess that this is going to have an influence even beyond my institution, beyond my company, because I'm training something that it's going to be replicated or used in other places. But I think many people are not aware of what it can do and how their interactions with those tools influence other people's work. So it's more like a game. It's exciting, they're exploring, but if people are more aware of how much they can have, how much responsibility they can take, and how much impact they're going to have with their use of AI, it might be helpful to have people who are intentionally using it in a way that helps other people flourish. So I think that's one thing that can supplement those technical guardrails, and also talks about responsibility or a co-responsibility for all the users. But in order for them to take that responsibility, they need to know that they have the responsibility and to know what impact or what are the consequences of their use of those tools are. So I think that's something that can help. And I was the first question, I'm not sure if I heard it correctly because I couldn't quite get it, but I think it was something to do with looking at AI and psychology and the difference between conversational AI and having it as a therapist. I think it's a very interesting topic. And uh, as a medical practitioner, I know that there is a lot to patient or client caregiver relationships that goes beyond just the technical skills. So a lot goes into it that is not just about the responses. So that there's something human in those interactions that even when it's replaced, it takes something out of the richness of those interactions. So I'd say much as we can't decide the future in terms of what is going to happen, one would have to keep in mind, the question of care, of human interactions, and the impact it has on well-being. So one of the 5 domains of human flourishing, according to the Harvard School of Flourishing, the program, is close interpersonal relationships. So those close interpersonal relationships happens within natural settings, or sometimes it happens in those settings where one needs to be in touch with a professional caregiver who helps them navigate difficult circumstances in their life. So I think taking that out completely would be losing out on one major aspect of human flourishing. So what would I propose then? I would say one is to figure out in each context what roles the emerging technology needs to play for the caregiver so that it helps them to navigate the challenges they may face, whether it's a high workload, a number of patients they need to attend to figure out in what ways can we simplify the process. But I don't think it's something that could be a general blanket because everyone's situation is different. So some caregivers will need their technical maybe paperwork taken off their hands because it gives them more time to spend quality time with their clients or patients, to have those conversations in a more humane way, just looking and knowing that you feel in the same being in the same place, looking at each other, and there's some things that you transmit just with the way you glance at a person. So there's a lot more going down there. But then I recognize that the tools can help in many ways, but one needs to look at the general context. What are the challenges that this healthcare setting or this therapist is facing, and how do we create something or modify or adapt a particular AI tool that helps them to facilitate their task so that that human connection, that is something that aids healing and is not taken out of those therapeutic relationships. And then the last thing is talking about educators and the idea of responsibility. I think it's connected also to the first question we said. I think an awareness of how much we can be doing and how much impact we have with our interactions with technology would help us then also recognize, Chinwe was asking about, our role as educators and helping people to realize that don't take what is human out of tech, as in let the human remain. But I think one way to help them to see it is to know there is some responsibility that I have. These are the impacts, these are the consequences. So that education of what AI is, realizing not just a mysterious black box that solves all the questions, helping us then to actually know what it does and how it does, and gives them also that edge to be able to use it positively, but they need to know how and know what it can do. And then that's one of the things that we can as educators do, show them how to use it, because they're going to use it anyway, but show them the way to use it, in constructive ways that actually promote flourishing as would like to see them in our contexts.
Thank you very much. That is very enriching to hear. And I'm a big fan also when I when I teach and when I lecture students, especially when it comes to AI, we know that students will use it. So why not ask them to use AI in their assignments and then perhaps, critique the AI or something like that to get the critical thinking going, to create that awareness that AI is not yet perfect. I mean, or teaching them certain prompts to see that there are still information lacking so that there's an awareness that this is not a perfect thing yet. It is still very much in development. I'm going to take one quick question and then I'm going to give you the closing question so that we can have closing remarks just to respect the time. Thank you, Yvonne. Just one question. We've got you in the green shirt.
My name is Francis Moami et je veux m'exprimer en français. Ça va aller? Je suis Francis Moami, je suis psychothérapeute et j'habite en Belgique où j'exerce mon métier de psychothérapeute mais aussi de coach auprès des entreprises. Vous avez parlé de la dimension que l'Afrique est grande, que l'Afrique a une grande jeunesse, mais là où je suis toujours, je me trouve un peu confronté à cette grandeur qui n'existait pas. Donc, dans les technologies, quoi qu'il en soit, l'Afrique sera un grand consommateur. Un très grand consommateur. Mais est-ce que nous sommes à mesure de montrer que nous sommes des grands consommateurs? Je commence à réfléchir, c'est une aperçu très simple. Quand je regarde la carte de l'Afrique, je regarde là-bas. Je ne vois que, je vois l'Afrique continentale et je vois aussi l'île de Madagascar. Et c'est plus que ça. Visuel. Alors, dans chaque développement, il y a toujours des choses qui ne sont pas dites. Et je me pose la question, quelles sont les stratégies dont nous disposons pour découvrir ce qui n'est pas dit? Je ne sais pas si vous me saisissez. Il y a toujours quelque chose qui n'est pas dit. Et que souvent nous continuons à appliquer des choses sans savoir ce qui est derrière là. Quelles sont les motivations qui sont derrière? Sommes-nous capables de découvrir ça? C'est une question que je me pose toujours. Et souvent, j'ai des briques de réponse, mais je me trouve dans un public qui est dans l'immersion. Moi, je ris à l'extérieur. Alors, la question que je dirais à cela, quelles sont les stratégies dont nous pouvons prétendre, ou bien des stratégies que vous avez devant vos yeux pour découvrir et pour montrer cette grandeur. Et l'approche de la psychologie, je la connais, elle est très essentielle. C'est aussi à cause de ce qui n'est pas dit. C'est à cause de ce qui n'est pas dit. Alors, on cherche à découvrir ce qui n'est pas dit. Merci.
Are you good? Very good? All right. The last time I listened to French, I was listening to Lingala.
I was just saying, I'm going to respond to that, but then again, I don't speak French. So I don't know if one of you want to have a quick response before I give you the closing comment or closing question.
Okay, I will try, but maybe I'm going to translate the question first. So basically, the question is more about, there are things which are not being said, okay, about development of AI systems, okay, and what kind of strategies, can be put forward in order to discover what's not being said. It's a precise question. It's a very tough question because when we say who needs to do what, would it be governments? Would it be civil society? From which angle are you going to look at it? Okay, so governments, everyone has some kind of, let's say, vision and perspective of a thing. It could be private organizations would have their own perspectives. Okay. Right now, in terms of, let's say, the big, like the global kind of big tech development, yeah, we don't know so much. We don't know so much very often how models are being developed. Okay, but I just discussed about the hope that there are alternatives also here, which are more open. Okay, so then that's why I said that maybe there could be a choice about choosing those more open models, which are, let's say, more known compared to the closed private models. Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we could talk about this all day long, but we don't have time. We have run out of time and we had extra time. So we were lucky. Thank you very much for that. But perhaps just can I ask you in one sentence, literally one sentence, both of you, what gives you hope about the future of humanity and AI? Because I want us to end on a very positive note here. So just one sentence each. Molly, we can start with you.
So I'd say I think AI is here to transform the world, and then we have the opportunity or the privilege to be here at the beginning to direct it in the way that is going to promote human flourishing. And I think we can stick to that. We're going to transform the world with AI, with the way we interact with it, taking responsibility and embedding our human values. And it's an opportunity for us to be here, and it's good that we take it.
So for me, the hope is what we are doing right now and what's been happening. Okay, even in a grander stage, global stage, it's like there has been some kind of awakening. Okay, in terms of we need to discuss what's happening, and due to this, there has been lots of new proposals coming in terms of how to most efficiently put red lines, put guardrails, put policies, educate people. So it's not only one kind of activity which is going to help us use the AI in the most ethical, most responsible way. It's going to be a series of things which needs to happen, in terms of convergence. Some things might go wrong sometimes because some kind of learning process which is happening in an accelerated pace right now. But in general, I think AI. Let's say if we can fast track in 5 years, AI would just be taken as a very important and useful technology. That's my hope.
Thank you very much. I want to thank both of you for this very stimulating conversation. I think this was wonderful and a great way to start the panel. So please give a hand to our two panelists.
Thank you. Well done, Senator. I'd like to answer your question as well as we conclude.
Oh, please go ahead.
So there's this grandma who went to watch soccer and her children were playing. And so they saw the stress between the players. They were kicking the ball, and this grandma decided to go to the pitch. And she picked the ball and gave it to the referee and said, "This thing has been bothering me for so long. I got it for you." AI, we keep on having this conversation for so long, but I think they have given us a very good conclusion that we humans have a role to play. It is our narrative to shape the future. Thank you very much. Let us appreciate our panelists for this one. Thank you for keeping time. As you say, the syllabus is going on well. I have a gift for you from Pen Africa. Please, Jovita, you can present to them as they make their way back to the seats. Thank you very much. Asante. So far, so good? Yeah. We can have coffee just outside as we interact and keep time. Let's be back here in the next 30 minutes. So not 15 minutes. 15 minutes, yeah. So 10:30, see you.
You might keep it with you.
Oh, I just.
You want to take it off?
Okay, that's it.
It's up to you. If you want to keep it, you can keep it. What
Yeah, okay. It doesn't take long, so I can just come back after 15 minutes.
was fun.
Est-ce que c'est tout à les mettre avec toi, cette question pour le
Ça, c'est. Est-ce que c'est bon? Moi, c'est bien.
I just want to check if my presentation is going to be If not, it's yeah.
Okay. I can help you out with I don't have someone manage your presentation online. You have to check. It's still you. Because we will be here to help as well.
But is it perhaps possible to see if it is maybe on the desktop?
No.
And we know that then it's done.
It's up to you.
I think so. Yeah.
Folks, can you hear me there?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now what, I don't know what you want to do with the sound. You do what you need to do with the sound at the moment, and because the other one isn't urgent, but I just want to do a bit of a change setup on that big screen so we can manage that big screen a bit.
No worries, 100 more.
Also thinking, critically speaking. I can't stand here, nobody's going to see. So, what will be the best? I also have my clicker, so my slide changer. So, with the base, perhaps we need to stand over here.
Yeah.
Yeah, because. And where would I stick in the slide changer?
So, it's going to be in the PC.
There, where that stick is at the moment.
Exactly.
Good.
Can you tell me which one?
It's a bit Africa now, yeah. Bottom one. The bottom one.
Is Amalia
Yeah.
your colleague?
Yes, but I've got two presentations. So for this venue, it's the bottom one. And then you have it. The top one. Then perfect. Then I'll go and load the other one first. Right.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
Good. Do you have any videos?
No.
Anything like that? No. It seems to be okay. You can have a look on the wall as well. How it feels okay. It seems okay.
Seems okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Should we, could I ask that presentation just be sent to me, because then I can send it to the online people without disrupting their view of the discussion?
Should I put it in the chat box?
Yeah, you can do that. Yeah, if you can put it in the chat box, yeah, that would be great. Then I can send it on to the online people. Then I don't present into the big screen, which is great. And then I'll send it on to everybody. They can then scroll through it on their own where they're sitting. And then we've got that the roving camera, the pickup camera is the main one on the screen.
No worries, Paul, but I can't put it on the chat box. It's not accepting it. Is there any other way I can share it with you?
Maybe if I can just put my email address in there so long that you can send it via email.
Okay, I'll do this.
Sorry, Paul, can I come in here?
Yeah.
Okay, how's it? Okay, so what I'm going to do now for the next session is I'm going to use my laptop as a camera for the audience.
Okay.
And let's see how that goes.
Okay, because we've got the audience, the fancy camera there is actually quite nice. It's working through quite well from that side. What we need to work on is just what we're putting up on the big screen there. because that's obviously there's a disturbance going through to the audience online. So now that we've got a presentation there, and if we've got other presentations, I will just send a copy of those presentations to the online attendees so they can then follow through that on that side. Yeah, that would be great. I will also just give you access here on this platform because I see you've come in. I'll just move you up to, yeah, you're now sitting as a panelist, so you'll be able to open your camera and use that around there as well because you're sitting as a presenter now as well.
Okay, no, great. But I don't quite understand what you were saying about the camera, because is there a camera already on the audience?
No. There's a camera on the stage. So
Yeah.
the camera that's on the stage, that one's working quite nicely from there. So we can just carry on with that. And then if you've got a second camera, then we can bring that in and we can spotlight it and run it through from there.
Okay. Let's try to do that with the next session and see how it goes.
Okay. No, that's super. Excellent, Brian.
Okay.
Thanks very
I'm
much.
going to move down now. Cheers, bye.
Okay.
Oh, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
There's a question from a lady working at Ben Africa with you.
Hi, Paul, it's Bella. How are you doing?
Well, in yourself, better.
I'm good, thank you. I was wondering if you are running the polls from your side. The
No.
questions.
No,
Are you not?
I don't have access to that. If you want to run it, maybe join the session, can run through into the online session here, and then we can run it through there. And obviously you'll display it up there in the screen. So if you've got the link to the MS Teams, maybe join there, and then you can just share it onto that group there as well.
Cool. Thanks so much. I just wanted to double check, but yeah,
Excellent.
I will join. Thank you very much, Paul.
Okay, super. Thanks, Bella. Thanks.
It's Celia. I can click on top. Yeah. Hi, Paul. It's Bella again.
Good. Hi, Bella.
Yeah, so we won't be doing the polls. It seems like only one person was prepared for that, and it's a bit of extra work. So yeah, no polls.
Okay. Super. Thanks very much. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you need fresh glasses or are you sorted?
good out there. I would like to begin. So I must Cookie, are you ready?
I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move it out of the way.
Okay, let me get
It's
it
not
for you.
working yet. So I'm just going to take
Or
it
do you need? Yeah, I can give it.
I'll try to sort it out.
Okay, in the interest of time, I suggest that we begin. Over to you.
We're not using.
Can you hear me now? So that was a bad start, right? In the interest of time, as people filter in, I think we'll start. Panel, well, this panel is titled Corporate Carbon Trade-offs, Environmental Costs and Ethical Considerations. Prior to delving into how we developed this panel title, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Same person, we have two speakers, and online we have one speaker. Our first speaker to my immediate left is Sarata Kabakwe. She is a governance and compliance professional in Botswana. Next to her is Aruna Rathison, not bad, from Absa Mauritius. She's an independent non-executive director. And then we have Dr. Bernard Wabukala from Makerere University in Uganda. So he's from the business school. Welcome online. I would just like to I don't want to take too much of the time and sort of eat into the real experts, which are the three of them that are going to speak. But I'd just like to briefly present the rationale of this panel, considering that companies are now paying to be allowed higher emissions. And on a myriad forms of decisions, they can move from decisions to invest in reductions all the way to purchasing credits in the form of carbon taxes and offsets. So we developed, in preparation for this, an overarching research question, four of us, which is what are the opportunities and ethical concerns for corporate carbon emission offsets? Double-barreled question. So there's two things that we're actually addressing here, is both the opportunities and the ethical concerns. And in doing so, I think that Dr. Bernard would be the best to open up by providing us a brief overview of opportunities for corporations that participate in carbon markets across Africa. Over to you, Doctor.
Hello and good morning from Uganda. I don't know if I'm heard.
Yes, you are.
Okay, because I'm getting some background noise from there, but we'll move on. Yes, I'm happy. Thank you, Ben Africa, for always making me part of this annual gainful conversation on ethics in the different dimensions. Straight to the issue, moderator, before I possibly highlight what I consider opportunities for corporate institutions, but even us individuals, really, because carbon markets are not discriminative in any way. So for you who are on this call and in this conversation and you have your money and you don't know what to do, get ready. This is where we are going. We are going to see where we can put money in carbon markets and be part of this. But today, this thing, so carbon trade-offs. What is carbon? What are carbon markets? What do they trade in? In short, a carbon market is like any trading system for pollution. So for farms that are polluting too much can buy what we call permission. Permission is the credits which you'll be hearing going on to this conversation. You buy permission to keep emitting. For those that cut down on emissions or pollutions, you can sell your credits and actually make money. And this is the whole short background to this conversation. A carbon credit, I'm not a scientist, but is evaluated as 1,001 ton of carbon that can be removed or avoided into the environment is what we base on. But here is the outlook and possibly the prospect for all of us to look into. Africa has a very huge potential as far as carbon markets are concerned, and we're just getting started. We hold about 30% of the world's tropical forests, but we are only using 2% in the carbon markets or credits that we contribute globally. And here is the best part. By 2030, Africa has the potential to earn about $6 billion a year just from participation in the carbon markets. We are also having potential to generate about 30 million jobs in Africa by just participating in markets. Green jobs, I'm talking about jobs with zero or less emissions that we do. So moderator, allow me then proceed to the opportunities for us, for all corporations in Africa per se. I'm going to put this in 4 areas. Number 1 is investment in what we call nature-based solutions. Put your money in nature-based solutions. What do I mean? 2 ways. You can plant trees, which is the low-hanging fruit, but we can also protect forests, which you already have. And this is one of the low-hanging fruits that individuals are participating in. To this, you pay communities that we most likely see to stop cutting down trees, or you can facilitate them actually to plant new forests. The example that I can mention on this is the Air France KLM in 2011 when they started their choice program, and they have been putting money in protection of forests in the DRC to allow them continue their operations, which we call offsetting flight emissions. Any benefits on this? Yes, locals will get jobs, and these are communities we live with. They have also participated in infrastructure, like building schools and other facilities that we see. The second area where you can put money today in Africa for carbon markets is scaling up renewable energy and clean energy deployments or technologies. Today, almost all countries in sub-Saharan Africa have fronting clean energy transition, and mainly in the cooking space. And what are you doing here? You are putting money to prevent indoor pollution because of our cooking systems, but you're also putting money in projects or communities that identify with the livelihoods of common people in Africa. And this is where the ethics matter more for us in this context. The third place that I can put to you today is purchasing and retiring high integrity credits, as we call them. And these are credits or carbon credits, which are specifically into contribution to climate goals. So it's not about only making money from carbon credits, but an area where you are going to buy credits so that you can help Africa, you can help our communities attain climate goals. And this is very close to this conference and this conversation, because this is a calling that we should see most participants put in. We shouldn't just be buying credits because we want to make profits. I'm not saying money is bad, but we have an obligation as society to also reduce emissions as institutions to this case. So you are giving clean air to families. You are also making your business more responsible in terms of what we participate. Finally, before I close, the fourth area, which I think we should also put attention to, is capacity building through partnerships and knowledge transfers. What do I mean? I want to give credit to Absa and all partners who have made this conversation possible, because like this conference, this is one of the avenues that we can put our monies into. Train, collaborate with the governments, collaborate with the development partners, make sure startups come up through investments that you can use. Train African youth. Today we have been talking already about AI, into AI. How can they measure carbon? How can they run projects? How can they use apps to facilitate all these processes, at the same time making money from this that we want to make? So in summary, moderator, before we expand this conversation, firms and corporations can participate in carbon markets simultaneously by attaining three things. Number one, we can make money. That's the most direct impact that we see. Number two, we carry huge potential to fight climate change and its impacts that we know. And three, from the ethical perspective, you are helping our communities, you are helping Africa to thrive through the transformations that arise with this. Of course, I have to mention that these simultaneous benefits stand only if we make our contributions fairly and transparent in the conversations that we make. I'll end here for now, moderator.
Thank you, Bernard. I think it's fantastic. Those four objectives or solutions frame the context very well for us. And it also leads us very nicely to the question that I'd like to ask Garata now. Could you give us a brief cost-benefit analysis? Have carbon or the objectives of carbon emissions and carbon emission trade been met, in your opinion, in your expertise?
Thank you, Ugi, and good morning, everyone, or should I say bonjour. And thank you to Dr. Bernard, who's actually helped me to answer part of this question, which is the benefits of carbon market. So the question you posed is very interesting and very thought-provoking, which is essentially, how do we evaluate or how do we conduct a cost-benefit analysis? So in an attempt to answer your question, I'd like to start from a global perspective and then drill down to our African context. So in terms of our global perspective, one need look no further than the European Union for their carbon market system. They have what is known as the EU ETS, the emissions trading system, which was launched in 2005. Now, how the system works is a mandatory compliant market, which sets caps on certain industries that they have to meet. And interestingly, these caps also reduce year on year. Now, what is very encouraging about the European Union is that as at 2023, studies had shown that they had actually succeeded in reducing emissions by 47% since it was launched in 2005. So through that alone, you can see that certainly their strategy in terms of trying to curb climate change in carbon markets has been relatively successful. And not only that, in terms of the financial investment opportunities, their ETS system also managed to raise a total of about, I think it was 175 billion euros, which was then made available to member states to use. And they were also required to ring-fence the use of that funding for climate carbon related. So in that, we do see a great opportunity for real tangible benefit, at least in terms of the actual environmental impact of setting a cap on emissions. Now, there's also what we've come to know as the voluntary carbon market, or offset market, as Dr. Bernard also introduced. And there, unfortunately, we're facing a little bit of more questionable impact. It's recently come under quite significant scrutiny because many have found it to lack the requisite financial transparency. That is, we can't really truly tell whether the trading of those carbons have had the intended impact, which is to reduce emissions. So, as I'm sure we'll discuss further, there's also the ethical consideration in this sort of strategy. Another cause for concern was 2022, between 2022 and 2023, there was a study conducted in the EU, and it estimated that approximately 87% of carbon credits during that time were found to be not real or not permanent or lacking efficiency as well. So that in itself raises a few questions about the structures we have adopted for the policy. But really, as I close, I'd just like to drill down to our African context. As you may be aware, Africa contributes only 3.9% of global carbon trading emissions. However, we face the brunt of the most devastating impacts of climate change, be it from flooding or droughts and everything in between. So our climate story really is one about survival and sustainable development. I'm also glad that Dr. Bernard raised opportunities for Africa in terms of having the potential of raising up to $6 billion through carbon markets by 2030 with the right reforms. But there also comes some issues of concern that are cropping up, which are quite unique to our African context. Now, firstly, unfortunately, the cost of capital in Africa is found to be up to 7 times more than the US or the EU, making any sort of investments into Africa for climate related projects quite a difficult sell for international investors. And secondly, which I find to be quite concerning, is this new issue that has cropped up known as carbon colonialism. Effectively, what this is trying to convey is instances where international actors or entities, they secure rights in land in African countries and in order to generate carbon credits, and then they trade them off for quite significant profit. However, we are finding that the communities where those credits are generated see little to no impact of sharing in the profit of trading system. So in closing, it's a mixed bag review. There are certainly many opportunities for Africa. We've seen successes through the EU system, but a lot more will need to be done in order to make sure that we actually get the true value of the trading system, one, and also enjoy the benefit of improvement to our environment.
Thank you, Garata. Those are very interesting statistics. What's quite alarming is that we're, and this is first I hear of it, thank you for bringing it forward, that we're only a 3% contributor. Yet the ramifications for Africa are quite immense. An interesting carbon colonialism. We can tie that very much into digital colonialism, knowing full well how large the Western or Western-centric footprints are compared to African footprints. There's a very interesting book from Michael Quick, Digital Regrowth. And this ties, and I like how you brought it in from broader down to Africa. And also speaks very well Dr. Bernard's work points. And this brings us, we narrow it down a little bit more, so we get a bit more country specific. So the question for you, Aruna, is in the local context, carbon emissions, understanding carbon emissions and trade-offs. What is your perspective? Give us your perspective on what's happening in the local scene.
Thank you. Could I first of all use the opportunity to thank Absa and also Ben Africa for inviting me today as panelists. Very happy to be here. Looking forward to the today's conference. Bye. Perhaps the first question to ask is why carbon credits and offsets matter in the climate transition. We heard both panelists earlier today. But just to give a quick definition, carbon credits they are tradable permits, and they represent basically reduction or removal of emissions. And they are typically used in compliance markets where governments cap emissions and allow trading of credit amongst listed companies. On the other hand, the carbon offsets allows entities to voluntarily compensate for emissions by funding climate positive projects. Now, both concepts, i.e. the carbon credits and offsets, are essential tools in the global decarbonization journey. They act as strategic transitional enablers that help organizations and companies bridge the gap between their current emission and their long-term net zero targets. However, their effectiveness hinges on integrity, and we hear a lot about that on the sustainability of it itself, problems with accuracy of data, accuracy of measurement, fully verified credit risk, which then enables greenwashing to step in. This being said, the evolution of carbon markets has been significant, has had significant global milestones. Globally, carbon markets have matured through compliance systems which we've heard earlier from Baraka, like the EU emissions trading system, and also through the voluntary platforms such as ERA or Gold Standard. However, Africa's participation therein has been historically limited, but recently has started accelerating. We have the Africa Carbon Markets Initiative project, which projects an annual $30 billion market potential by 2030. We also have the Africa Union Action Plan on carbon markets, which outlines priority sectors for engagement across member states. There are, of course, some African countries taking the lead, the like of Kenya, accounting for 20% of Africa's credits, and Zimbabwe, 4.2 million credits in 2022, and Gabon, $2 billion in sovereign level sales. These countries are leading with large red projects, i.e. projects which focuses on reducing emissions from deforestation and forest degradation. They also have proper national frameworks in place. We all know that the African continent contributes less than 10% of global emissions, and yet possesses vast natural carbon sinks that could absorb over 600 million tons of carbon dioxide annually. However, Africa is underrepresented in the global carbon credit and offset market. Then, carbon credits and offsets present a real strategic opportunity for both Mauritius and the broader African region to position themselves as active participants in the global climate finance ecosystem. Now, to zoom in a little bit on Mauritius, we have not traveled the journey far enough, and we're not mature enough on that journey to be in the leading position. There are a few companies in Mauritius which are already ahead, and they are local companies, but not many. However, Mauritius, with its 2.3 million square kilometers exclusive economic zone, is actually uniquely placed to develop blue carbon projects, the like of mangrove restoration or seagrass conservation. The country has also made some efforts to established a regulated carbon credit market supported by the central bank and by the Financial Services Commission. And this in the hope of attracting green investment to diversify its financial services sector. So, carbon markets may offer to Mauritius a strategic pathway to firstly mobilize climate finance. Why is that important? Well, to bridge the 180 billion Mauritian rupees gap that we have in funding the NDC 3.0 target, which include 40% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions and 60% renewable electricity generation by 2035. Also, carbon markets would help diversify the financial services sector, positioning Mauritius as a regional sustainable financial hub. Carbon markets would also help us, Mauritius, to support inclusive development, especially in the rural and coastal communities through nature-based solutions. But to make that happen, there are some key enablers that have got to be in place, and these are namely that the regulatory frameworks should be aligned with international standards. And then also, we need capacity building, not only in the private sector, but also in the public sector, especially in areas like carbon accounting, monitoring, reporting, verification, and climate risk. We also need market infrastructure, which support transparent trading and settlement. International safeguards are critical, as credits must be embedded in broader decarbonization strategies with third-party verification and science-based targets to avoid greenwashing. Lastly, well, public awareness and stakeholder engagement will be key to building trust and demand. Thank you.
Thank you, Rina. And I suppose that would lead us to, being that this is a business ethics platform, would lead us to our next question. What sort of ethical concerns, both social and environmental, will we face? And Garanta sort of touched on that a little bit when you had noted that 87% of all these carbon credits are not real, they're fraudulent themselves. And I suppose everybody has touched on this a little bit. So would you be able to highlight to us one or two key ethical concerns in this implementation? And maybe we could start with Garanta, being that she touched on it and everybody has touched on it, and we could move.
Yes, thanks a lot. In terms of the ethical considerations, perhaps let's start with the collective understanding of what ethics means. So from my point of view, the ethical argument really is basically organizational ethics rather is a balance between what is good for business and what is good for society. So we have seen that in terms of commercial or capital market, there's been a lot of good business happening that has been happening for the benefit of society as well. This way we see the scale have tipped to the detriment of society in general. Now, what carbon markets seek to improve is to now balance the scale again and make sure that everything that entities do or organizations do also benefits society. In the terms of the current conversation around the carbon market, we find that we do have organizations that are benefiting or profiting from trading carbon credits, but then there are instances where, for example, in the African context, it's been said that some indigenous communities have been displaced because of international board rights to use of that land. So in that case, is it good for society? There are also a few other ethical principles that, in terms of this, that being one of trust and integrity. Trust meaning, can we truly trust the climate accounting system that we've come to develop? Does it really represent what is happening on the ground? Integrity, as I mentioned before, there's questions around the the lack of transparency, financial transparency, which limits us as observers and regulators from truly being able to assess how these credits are treated. But I'd also like to say that it's also ensuring that all organizations remember that they have a duty to do good in society. By putting a penalty on pollution, they are being forced, or they shouldn't have to be forced, but they're being forced to make sure that what they do in terms of their operations has the least impact to our planet.
It makes me wonder in the context of the DRC is how large Rio Tinto's trade-off would have to be as a context of the capture of the state. Aruna, could I give you the platform and then Bernard?
I think I'd like to make a quick comment. Only to bring up Team 5, sorry, that has recently come out. And interestingly, ethics is right in the center there. And there's a lot of emphasis on it in Team 4, Team 5, and also on the issue of acting as a corporate citizen, i.e. inclusive approach, which is coming back again, and which boardrooms will need to look at. And again, it's with accountability back onto the boardrooms. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. Bernard?
Yeah, thank you. And I think Gorat and my colleague have really emphasized on the two things, but I just wanted to add on the two key concerns today in the carbon markets participation. Number one is what we call greenwashing, a situation where we are seeing corporations and companies or firms promote offsets. This whole song, we are reducing emissions, we are removing carbon in the environment, but without actually real impact. And I'll use one example we have in Uganda up here. The company came and they planted trees in a very vast piece of land in a community. And then these people had to move to give way for forests and trees to grow. But the concerns over the last 8 years have risen over if one, they were actually made worse off. And it is true because apparently they were moved from their community, which was more fertile, which was more agricultural, to an area where they cannot get or grow food relative to where they used to. And this has actually escalated to higher levels in terms of consideration for this project. So you have a place or community with green trees and good trees, but it is actually a disadvantage in communities. Number two, issues of fairness on the ethical concerns have been raised. The conversation today is that actually we are not removing emissions, because if people from Europe or from elsewhere are coming to buy credits from Africa, we are just geographically moving emissions, but we are not reducing them. They are coming to buy credits to go back home and continue emitting while Africa continues to produce credits for them to take their businesses on. So I think all these two have really put across conversations on what we should do. And I think personally, the first point or the first place to go to is the ethical considerations that we are all charged with. Where is the fairness? Can we measure this fairness? Where is the transparency, as Greta mentioned? And these are items that really have to be pointed. For projects that are going to displace communities, that are going to disadvantage communities in the context of carbon credits and the carbon markets, we shouldn't let the shoe slip off. Thank you.
Thank you, Bernard. In speaking about timelines, we've got about 15 minutes left in the session, but I would like to open the floor to Q&A for about 10 minutes. That you direct questions. So if we have questions from the floor, I would like to take them in rounds of 3. So you could just direct the questions to which speaker, and please, in a line of fairness and collegiality, let's keep it polite.
My name is Kabiru Ndabu from Nigeria. My worry about environment issues is that in discussing these issues, we need to have a government functionaries around. So whatever idea we may come up with, we may not be the one to execute these ideas. And as this topic is being included in the program, I think at least one person from the public sector should have been invited to answer questions here. In Africa, whenever we talk about governance, reference is being directed to corporate governance. We don't talk much about the public governance, because the public functionaries, they should have been taking care of issues of ethics and leadership. They don't join us in discussing these issues. So I think I see this as a challenge, Africa President, that we need to work hard to bring government functionaries to our conference so that when we discuss governance, they should know that most of the issues of governance relate to public. And they are to provide the public governance, the ethics and leadership in the public sector. Otherwise, we're going to be discussing issues on which we don't have control. And at the end of the day, things will not be changed positively in Africa. These are my questions. I don't know what the panelists will say about that. Environmental costs, public sector functionaries should be taking care of that. We can treat them with information. We can treat them with tangible suggestions as to what and what they should do to better the lot of Africa as a whole. Thank you.
Well, I think we can respond. I think it would be very difficult for the panelists to respond. Okay, if you want to.
I feel passionate about what you talk about. So the online videos. I feel passionate about that subject, mostly because I do a lot of boardroom, and my last 6 years I actually chaired the National Committee on Corporate Governance. And in Mauritius, we had our second code, and we were about to start revising to have a third code. And that code of corporate governance applies both to the public sector and the private sector. Often I hear in Mauritius, sometimes when I go in the ministry type forums, that the code doesn't apply to us. It applies to both. And it was deliberate that it applies to both sectors, because the standard would be the same for both. We cannot have one performing, private sector performing excellently, and the public sector lagging behind, or the other way around. This being said, we always adopted a collaborative approach with all stakeholders, including private sector, to make our projects work. In the main things we did, like the scorecard is set before. That's the only way you have success. But one has to bear in mind that in reality, it's perhaps easier to make the private sector move forward quicker than it is for the public sector for various reasons. Often I failed during my 6 years, I took 2 steps forwards and then 1 step backwards. Okay, when I dealt with the ministries and so on. So yes, I understand the frustration. It's a state of things. We need to grit our teeth to make change happen. Thank you.
And also on behalf of Ben Africa, so I think the executive committee will make more of a concerted effort to try and involve the public sector as well. It's quite difficult being that we're not based out of one country to establish a connection. But we'll work on that. Put up the floor. Next question. So we'll take 2 more questions.
merci, c'est Francis Moami. Et le changement climatique, c'est vrai, c'est une réalité. Je suis très content que ce soit aussi un des sujets de cette conférence. J'ai entendu que vous, effectivement, dans ce processus de réduction de carbone, il y a des projets de planter des arbres, de protéger les forêts, d'investir dans les énergies renouvelables, et plein de choses. Et vous parlez dans un concept très alléchant, qui est le greenwashing. Il est en vogue, mais là, c'est une réalité. Mais paradoxalement, quand moi je me déplace dans différentes capitales de l'Afrique ou dans certaines régions, je me trouve dans un dilemme. On parle de ceci, mais ce que moi je vois, c'est autre chose. Prenons l'exemple des voitures à diesel. Dans certains lieux, tu arrives là, tu ne respires même pas. N'est-ce pas, non? Mais je sais, c'est parce que moi je sais comparer. Je sais comparer. Hein? Et pendant la nuit, je réfléchissais, mais j'ai même mis en règle. Si on prenait par exemple une école secondaire, dans un coin quelque part, on met dans un avion, c'est 300 personnes, 400 personnes. On le met dans un coin où il va respirer, il va sentir que ça respire autrement. Est-ce que ce ne sera pas peut-être une étape de faire prendre conscience aux générations, à la nouvelle génération? Je me pose cela. Je me pose cette question. Avec la question que je pose, quelle est la lecture que vous faites de cela, de cette réalité? Je vous remercie.
Would you like to answer that before we take a question?
Merci beaucoup pour votre question. Je crois qu'il y aura une question très passionnante de vous au cours de la journée. Effectivement, créer l'éducation est important, et je crois qu'on voit dans la génération nouvelle, surtout mon enfant par exemple, Jordan, c'est lui qui vient me harceler, on fait les choses proprement et durablement. Je crois que l'éducation des jeunes, ça commence avec l'éducation des jeunes à l'école, et puis leur entourage même, et les réseaux sociaux, les gens en parlent beaucoup. Ce qu'on voit, nous, ici, c'est les jeunes qui poussent beaucoup leurs parents à changer leur manière de vivre. Je ne réponds pas tout à fait à votre question, parce que ce n'est pas entièrement une question, c'est beaucoup plus à l'école. D'accord? Merci.
Very good morning. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Yukeria Walk from Namibia. And thank you for your presentation. Okay, I had something to do with 3.9 contribution of emissions from Africa, am I correct? So I don't know whether this is a question or it's a contribution, because I'm thinking that are we not fiddling while Rome bends? For me, I'm thinking that there are more critical and devastating issues that would really require attention. Just as we were discussing earlier on AI, to say we need African-based solutions. And I was just thinking, perhaps even to the organizers of the conference, to say, I think there are more ethical concerns when it comes to our medical and drug industry, as well as food supply chains, because we've been having a lot of products coming from other countries into our African states, which are corrupted and also affecting the health of our people. And we have had so many of drugs being recalled on, perhaps they have been on the market for more than 5 or so years, and people have been consuming these drugs, and it seems nothing has been I mean, there's not been much attention to these issues. And we're also having ineffective consumer councils within our nations where we are just getting imported products, modified products that we obviously know the negative repercussions to our health, but yet we are giving more attention probably to these emissions and so on. I'm also making reference to the recent statement by Bill Gates where he said climate change and these issues are not so devastating. Poverty and diseases are more devastating. That then should we not maybe perhaps redirect our focus when it comes to this? Thank you so much.
Thank you. If anybody, any of the panelists would care to respond to that or not within their domain? I think their focus is very much on, but we do have some degree of dedication. Unfortunately, we're out of time. We have 3 minutes, so I would like to take these 3 minutes to for the panelists to close their session, just with their closing final remarks and reflections, a minute each. I'll start with, maybe some of the graph that will need to remember.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be very brief. I'd like to close with a quote that I read recently, which I think goes to the heart of the importance of this discussion today. And the quote is a proverb, purportedly from Native America, and it says that we do not inherit the earth from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. So let's keep that in mind as we position the conversations around climate change in our daily and organization and government unit.
From my side, I will use all energy I have to try to push the sustainability agenda for Mauritius. We have already traveled the long road in Absa, and the team is doing fantastically well on that journey. And we will be doing that maturing along the way. That's our ending comment. Thank you.
Bernard? If you're still online.
Unfortunately, Bernard has dropped off the line. I think he's had a misconnection.
Okay, fantastic then. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists, all three of our panelists. Thank you for entertaining us. And I think we've ended right on time, so you're welcome to pick up the conversation with the panelists after this session.
Thank you, Uge. Before you leave, I would like to appreciate you with a very beautiful gift, Bella. You can present our panelists. Thanks for keeping time. Your conversation and that proverb reminds me of our time in Ghana, and one Susan reminded us of a song by Michael Jackson. If you want to see change, look at the person in the mirror, correct? Thank you very much. Let us appreciate them. Thank you, Ugi. Well done. We are moving very well, and I'd like to request the presence of one Jennifer to make her way here so that she can introduce our third panel. Welcome, Jennifer. Let's appreciate her.
So bonjour à tous. Good morning, everyone. Are you still alive and kicking? Yes. Good. So I know we're going to stand between you and lunch, so we will really try to keep it appetizing as much as we can. So I would like to invite Fadia Joachim to join me. And I think Greg
I bumped into her. She's
here. Can you hear us, Greg? We can see you. Perfect. What time is it on your side? You're mute. You're mute, Greg.
Greg, please just unmute yourself. Thank you.
Oh, Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. So
Oh,
what time
wonderful.
is it inside?
It's 11:25, so PM, so close to
Okay.
midnight. Yes.
Perfect. Thanks for keeping awake for us. Please
No,
take a
thank you
seat.
for inviting me. Yeah.
So Greg is connecting from California, so I think we can give him a big round of applause for sharing. So our panel is hopefully as exciting as the previous two. And I'd like to welcome everyone again. And I think we also have others joining us online. Today we explore a question that sits at the crossroad of innovation, ethics, and public trust. The role of artificial intelligence in media. Is AI expanding access to information or accelerating misinformation and eroding trust? So we'll have a conversation on the responsibilities of organizations and individuals, focusing on the role in media. I think it's important that we remind ourselves as we start the conversation that media is no more what it used to be. It's no more newspapers, radio, and TV alone. We have a whole set of new things coming on. So we have the full digital ecosystem, which includes online news platforms, social networks, streaming services, podcasts, user-generated content, and the list is long. But I think one important one is those famous algorithms that determine what content that we see and when we see them. AI is in fact in this central position in this ecosystem. It generates content, analyzes audiences, influences visibility and engagement. So we must ask ourselves, does AI help strengthen informed societies, or does it make the truth harder to find? So with me, I have actually three great panelists, and I would like to introduce them. Next to me here, you have Fadia Naziakan. She's a lecturer in communication and journalism and currently serves as a communication advisor to the government of Mauritius. She began a career as a journalist, later moving into strategic communication role at the National Anti-Corruption Agency in the banking sector. So Fadia is currently pursuing a PhD focused on AI, corporate communication within the banking sector. So I'm sure we'll have a lot of things to exchange after your PhD. So please, a round of applause for Fadia for joining us today. Online, we have the Dr. Greg Gonzwe, who's joining us from California. He just mentioned it. He's a scholar of journalism and emerging technologies at California State University and a faculty associate at Harvard Berkman Klein Center. His research explores how AI and global power dynamics shapes news and public discourse in African context. He's done a lot of work on algorithmic biases, misinformation, and media equity in the sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm sure we have lots to learn from you, Greg. So let's give him a round of applause and keep him awake, please. Last but not least, we have Joachim coming straight from Mozambique. He's an ethics practitioner, an academic from Mozambique, leading in interim ethics office at the Polytechnic University. He has extensive experience in promoting ethical governance in the media sector. He has worked with national broadcasters to strengthen accountability and integrity. His current work focuses on how emerging technology, including AI, challenge and transform ethical standards in communication and public trust. I know he's a little bit nervous because English is not his first language, so please a double round of applause for him. So we'll start with the first question for Greg here. So Craig, maybe you can tell us a little bit more. How do you see through the work that you've done, what are the most significant ways in which AI has changed the way we produce content today across different platforms globally, and maybe the differences that you see in the way it is being used in Africa?
Yes, so thank you again for having me. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, very clear.
Wonderful. I started my research in 2022, and that was almost the same time. I mean, it's the same time when generative AI became a buzzword. And surprisingly, by December, January 2023, I found out that there were a lot of African journalists that were already using generative AI. And that was interesting. The adoption level was just so fast compared to how we've used to seeing it. So in many ways, we've seen it actually transform journalism significantly, especially in terms of content production. Uh, for those that do journalism, you understand that many of us are kind of scared of statistics, scared of big data analysis and things like that. And what I've seen or what I've noticed in not just in Africa but in the United States as well is that we've seen a level of confidence growing among journalists in actually analyzing these big data sets. So they've used AI to actually collect and analyze data sets, and we've seen people come up with very significant, stories that emerge from the data itself. So that's one way in which they are doing it. Then, of course, we've seen AI use algorithms to personalize content. We certain geographical locations love certain kind of stories. And in the past, there are those groups that have been sidelined, those groups that have been ignored because it was difficult to write a story that does accommodate different geographical locations. But with artificial intelligence and with this personalization aspect, we've seen a lot of them actually designing the same news story for different audiences and different locations. That's sort of the second thing. Then the third one that I've seen is, the cost and skill barrier collapse. We had most of our newsrooms are struggling financially, not just in Africa, but also across the globe. People have lost, trust in the audience, which we'll talk about. Um, Mostly because of the majority of news outlets, but also the involvement level that the media has put itself in terms of politics. And as such, funding has become a problem. But regardless, we've seen artificial intelligence coming in to leverage or to help these less resourced newsrooms. And they have thrived. In that sense, we've also seen the rise of independent journalists. Initially, you needed skill to have, like, if you're an independent journalist, you needed somebody to actually carry your big camera, somebody to edit your video with things like, Adobe. But now with AI, people can actually create a simple, mobile newsroom where they can actually produce impactful news or impactful contents for their audiences and various locations and various locations and various audiences. And even in terms of distribution, as opposed to the past where you had to send your news story elsewhere, now we're seeing them send these news stories through different AI generated platforms that have actually been are mostly free, especially in our developing nations. So those are kind of some of the positives that we've seen emerge from that. I don't know if you wanted me to jump into the negatives, or maybe I can wait for that.
I mean, let's deal with it since I think those are the plus and the other side of the coin. So please.
Yeah. Yeah, so one of the challenges we've seen is, of course, the rise of misinformation as a result of, anyone being able to produce content. Artificial intelligence has made it easy for content production, but it has also made it easy for the distribution of misinformation. So that's the biggest challenge that everyone is participating in. Then the other thing that we've seen, which is a positive, is like, for example, Zimbabwe had the first Africa's AI news anchor. This person is AI generated, you can't tell, and they read the news. That news is trusted. I did kind of a research, a little kind of research, and the sentiments that came from the audience were that this person was talking like Wakanda. It's like the accent is not Zimbabwean, the accent is the Wakanda accent. Where is that taking us? What that means is that we are seeing a disappearance or an erasure of certain kind of cultural artifacts that we've held to ourselves as, these are the most important things. One of them would be the accent. Other things are just certain words that these AI materials can reject or can choose to exclude from what you're actually giving them. So the Africa that is known outside the Africa that is known in the United States and other places is the Wakanda Africa, and the accent is the Wakanda accent. So that's what you see in this AI generated content. And beyond that, we're also seeing, the universalization of other cultural forms. So what is truth is not defined by us, regardless of how much we are participating in the creation of content. When we think about it, how many people own these major media outlets? Twitter, we talk about Instagram, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, and it just goes on and on. We only have a handful, and these people would decide what we actually put on our social media accounts, but also they decide what these outputs or AI can actually give out. When I was doing a study in Uganda, for example, in 2022, 2023, I talked to journalists, and they said at that time, I'm not sure at this time, when they wanted to write a story that was against homosexuality, the chatbot told them that you cannot do that because that's against human rights. So a journalist was complaining. He says, no, in our country, this is not against human rights. The human rights are defined by the West. But I think at this stage, probably that is not a conversation anymore, because we have joined these arguments and participated into what is defined as truth. So the homosexuality part is just one aspect of it, but there are many, many other cultural artifacts that we probably hold dear that will be disappearing. So in the next 5, 10 years, the audience we have, the children we have, and the young people that are among us will be speaking differently. They'll be writing differently, and they will define truth in a very different way compared to the way we define it. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we've actually seen in terms of who defines that. And then the other thing is, the world is also struggling with the legality of it. What is legal, what is not. For example, is content written by ChatGPT plagiarism? And I think most of us in Africa are sitting back and just waiting for them to make a decision. We're not looking at it in terms of how does it benefit us. Right now, I'm doing a study where I'm collecting syllabi from different African universities, and it's surprising. I mean, I express my intention. I tell them that this is what I'm trying to do. Many of them don't want to associate themselves with their syllabi because it mentions AI. Because when you say, oh, do you use AI? Everyone thinks, are you cheating? So those are some of the narratives which have not been defined, but we as Africans are also seated back waiting to say, we want the West to define whether this is plagiarism or not, this is cheating or not. And then from there, that's when we are going to take a step. Are we using it? Yes, we are. Are we making our own decision? We are not. So yeah, in summary, these are some of the things that probably would want to look at as we, forecast our adoption of AI and how we use it. Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Greg.
you.
I mean, I think indeed, I think as you mentioned rightly, definitely lots of benefits, but also some questions and thoughts that we have to keep in mind in terms of can we influence what is, say, we put in something and we get what we put in, and how as Africans we can have an influence on what goes in. So I'll bring it a little bit more to the local stage with Fadia. What would be your view of what's happening here in Mauritius in the media landscape with regards to the use of AI in content creation? You've been a journalist, and I'm sure you are observing the way that you started your career and how it is today. So what would you have to say on this?
So let me start with a story. A very recent personal experience, as a matter of fact. So as I was working as an advisor in communications to a minister, so of course media relations plays a big part of our job. And I had to deal with journalists every day almost. So one moment in time, I sent content on behalf of the ministry to a journalist. I won't name and shame, no, that's not the point. After 10 minutes, the journalist sends me back the content, saying that she has reviewed it and just to give my go-ahead, it's okay for publication. And when I look at that, it was filled with hallucinations, with wrong information. It was not just about the writing, I mean, not just the grammar or something like that. Like, you can already notice that it was like she just put that on ChatGPT, and you have the language, the typical language, the words that you generally can already identify nowadays, I believe. And plus with wrong factual information. So I get back to the journalist and I tell her, you put that on ChatGPT, but you didn't check. And she was like, lol, So for me, yeah, gotcha, yes. I told her, I'm a lecturer, I don't need AI to detect AI. I'm so used to that. And finally, I had to write that thing myself. And this is just one example of what is actually happening. And this is so different from my time, like 10 years ago when I was a journalist. We didn't have ChatGPT, we didn't have AI, and we were like relied upon to write our content correctly, to fact check. But I think with social media today, especially the news cycle, 24-hour/7 news cycle, there is this urgency to deliver, to broadcast information as rapidly as possible, because this is a very competitive landscape. And so it is impeding on the fact-checking side. It is also impeding on the accuracy. And I think that ChatGPT has actually become like not just a tool, but they don't really cross-check information that is being provided there. So like Dr. Gregory said, he spoke of misinformation, so we have hallucinations. So this is one of the incidents that actually pushed me to do some research in that area in Mauritius. So hopefully I will be presenting my findings later on today. So I wanted to see how AI is being adopted in media, by media houses in Mauritius. And I did a random survey with journalists, and in fact, everyone, 100% of the journalists told me that they are using ChatGPT for their work. But interestingly, it's for proofreading and correcting grammar, and not necessarily as it is being used by other newsrooms in the global north, for instance, where they're actually curating information or doing it for personalized information. Here it's mostly focused on like checking your grammar, if everything is okay, and this is for how they're using it. But on the other hand, there is no, actually there is no ethical, like, they don't have any ethical policies. And I got some answers that in one newsroom, they have internal AI review committee, but else there is no parameters, there is no proper framework to guide journalists on using AI in a very ethical and responsible manner. So it also makes me think about the government itself, because just recently, the government has launched a blueprint on AI for Mauritius, and well, it's still at the blueprint level. Hopefully, we will see that rolling out, and perhaps that could also include, issues like data privacy and plagiarism. So at the end of the day, who's responsible if, like, you are misinforming the public, or you are doing certain breaches to, as a journalist, because you have the responsibility to inform your public, but at the same time, you have, when informing your public, you have to check that your information is accurate and you're not sharing like private information that could actually cause any harm.
So I think that keeps us thinking, how do we prepare those who are currently going into this field to adapt or to reflect on how to, do that job? So as an educator, how do you think, do you think we are preparing our students, future students, to operate in to be journalists, or to think critically about AI-assisted media? And in your view, what are the new skills that will be now required for the journalists of tomorrow?
Thank you for this question. As a matter of fact, I think irrespective of the universities or the institutions we have in Mauritius, we are also being proactive. For example, from where I am at the University of Technology, we have this last year, we revamped our program to include AI and all the digital aspects of journalism. So I think, yes, just like the BTM is doing, other universities or institutions are, like, they are revamping, they are staying abreast of all this innovation. But interestingly, perhaps in Mauritius, most of our journalists don't have a journalism degree. So contrary to many countries, even when I came back after my studies, I was the only one with a journalism degree in my newsroom. And you will see, like, you've got many people, perhaps, like they have a degree in the honors in English or French or political science, and they're working as journalists. So perhaps years ago, you would have senior people who would guide you, who were there to coach you about how to go about, how to navigate. Of course, we've got many journalists today who are from chevronnés, and they didn't necessarily have a degree in journalism, but they're so good, But right now, do our young journalists, do they have the time to, to learn at the place of work? I think today, especially with the 24-hour news cycle, people want their professionals, the journalists, like plug and play, So you already have to know what you're doing about ethics, about your responsibility as a journalist. So I think we are a very small country also, so our specificities are different from perhaps other countries on the African continent or elsewhere. And perhaps also one of the solutions would be to give short courses to these people who wish to pursue their studies in specifically in the media, Right now, we have like courses in communications, which will englobe both PR and communication and journalism. So you're like an all-rounder. But even more today, so the journalist needs to be someone who is multi-skilled. It's no longer like just you either write for the paper or you're writing for the website. Today you have to be really a multimedia journalist to be able to perform. So you need to have a critical thinking, and you also need to be conversant with AI today, because we have got so much content on our mobile phone every day. Like, this is where we are digging for information very often. So how do we distinguish between what is fake and what is a deep, what is a correct information and what is a deep fake? So I believe that in our modules, in our programs, we need to include such items where these students get the proper training to be able to identify, for example, deep fakes. And if I may give an example of how AI, perhaps such content, influenced Mauritius for the last elections. So if people followed M. Moustas, yes, so we had this content flooding our social media, and people were looking, they were awaiting such content every day, and which actually had a big impact on our elections. And what I mean, it's the journalists also had a big role to play, because they were relaying such information. But to date, we don't know whether it is a fake, it is deep fakes, it is what. We don't know the origins of the content, but you see how impactful such content can actually be, and how journalists also have a role, to actually know what they are sharing with their publics.
Thank you, Fadia. Indeed, I think the responsibility is high. And I'd like to move to Joachim. I think that when we were discussing before this panel, you did share with me the example of what happened in Mozambique. So would you be willing to share what happened in Mozambique and the impact, and maybe some key learnings from that experience? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. Good morning. I think the reality in Mozambique is quite the same as the rest of the country in Africa. And regarding the fake news, misinformation, in this area, I cannot only talk about the information in Mozambique for Mozambicans, because according to the issue, you go to Facebook, you can see, for instance, in Mozambique, during the post-electoral period, we had a lot of people from Angola, people from Cape Verde, people from different countries, that they were following the situation in Mozambique. So it was not about Mozambique for Mozambicans, but you had a lot of different nationalities following. But what we saw, for instance, is there was a fake news. Someone created a small video with police shooting for teenagers, and in certain area of Mozambique, in the national road, they decided to block the road. So people were not able to travel from one region to other. It was about 1 day. Okay. Nobody tried to understand if that was really if the information was true or not. Okay. I think what happened is that it's not about if the information is true or not, but it's a little bit of the willingness to believe in the information. You know, some people they were supporting the demonstration. They were supporting this kind of blocking the roads and etc. Even if the next day you have small information like, okay, this is fake news, or this video is related to, for instance, Nigeria or Angola, they will continue to believe that no, it's Angola, but okay, but I'm very hungry, I want to do this. So the truth or not is not exactly the case. People want to believe on what they are seeing in social media, and you never know now who is really a journalist, because everyone can create his own Facebook channel or even WhatsApp channel, and they can vehiculate the information. So how can you control it? It's difficult for us. And I think what's happening is you have this situation about kind of productivity, because even me, if I have my own channel, I want to engage more and more and more people. So it doesn't matter if the information that I put there is true or no, or not, but I know that if I put something with a little bit of style, I will have a lot of engagement, but I'm not, it's not my concern to check the accuracy of that information. And I know that most of the people, they don't care if the information is true or not, since that it has a lot of engagement. Usually we believe that, okay, if a lot of people are seeing this, it means that the information is true.
So that indeed raises a concern, right? So what is true? How to know what is true? And as you said, it's tricky, right? Journalists could, the information before you would know it's coming from this newspaper, so it's a credible source. Now the sources are so much varied, and the information is flooding from everywhere. So how to distinguish what is true and what's not? So what are your views? Maybe I'll ask that question to each one of you. In that specific context, where we also know the power of sharing something which is, that can create total social issues, and we've seen even recent emergencies can even impact lives. So what can be done, considering that the situation is becoming so complex, where drawing the line between what is real and not, and the actual reliable source? Because that's key, right? So I don't know who would like to start on this. Is there anything that can be done from a practical perspective, whether it is from the consumer side, whether it is from a regulatory side, to make sure that we can protect the societies for consuming all this information?
Yes, so I believe that, the current landscape with AI is also, we shouldn't just look at it negatively. I believe that, it's an opportunity for journalists. Professional journalists. So Joachim was mentioning that anyone could just create a page, and I think this is something that we are facing across the world. It's not just in this country or in Mauritius, it's everywhere. And people indeed, if you read the comments, very often, people fail to distinguish between what is a true journalist, what is coming from a media house, and what is not coming from a media house. And I think that as I said, this is an opportunity for professionals to distinguish, to demarcate themselves, because let's not forget that the journalist has certain responsibilities, some ethics that he or she has to follow. And AI, yes, indeed, is making things more complicated for them. But at the same time, you know, unlike a citizen journalist who doesn't actually know, okay, we see that very often in Mauritius. There is a road accident, and they just publish the picture of the victim lying on the road, etc. So this is not ethical, you know, because think of the impact that this is causing to the family. And, you know, for them, it is just about sharing that information. They were there at the right moment, at the right time. They just captured something, but they don't know the context. So there is a great, I would say, work that the journalist actually does before publication. So I would think that people need to realize that they should go to these formal sources of information, because when you're actually going to a registered, media house, they are on social media, of course, like we are aware, print journalism is no longer selling, but everyone is going for news on TikTok, on different social media platforms, and journalists, all the media houses, they have